Hola!
¿Cómo estáis?
Soy Greg.
Soy Lisa.
And we wanted to hop on here and talk about something that we've gotten a lot of questions about. And it really seems to be the most repeated comment. When are we going to hear you speak? Or at least some version of that question.
Right.
Now, we understand and we totally get why you would want to hear us speak. I mean, after all, we all start learning Spanish so that we can speak it. Well, we're going to answer that question here today. But before we hop into that, we do want to kind of remind you that we're at the intermediate level right now. We're at about 770 hours of comprehensible input, and most of that input is on the Dreaming Spanish platform.
Now, according to the roadmap, conversation is optional once you hit 600 hours of input, recommended when you hit 1,000. And as some of you know, we moved to Spain in the beginning of February of 2024. So we've had no choice but to start communicating at around 500 hours. So our goal, though, before coming here was mostly to be able to understand.
Right.
Speaking really wasn't a huge part of that goal at the time. We thought that if we could just understand, then that would be a huge improvement from our first trip here in 2023.
Right, yeah. So, it's like night and day, honestly. And I would say at our level of about 750 hours, we're able to understand quite a bit. We are comfortable in most situations. And over the 6 months of us being here, we've only really had a couple times or a couple situations where we just couldn't understand anything at all. And of course, it can be super frustrating when we can't speak the way we want to speak.
Yeah, just so you know, we like talking to everyone.
Yeah.
If you went to dinner with us, Greg would be that guy sitting at the table asking the waiter for their name or chit-chatting with the cashier or just some random person walking down the street.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily shy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, that's my thing. So now, as you can imagine, it can be super frustrating. But one of the things that we often do is after we have a conversation with somebody speaking Spanish or we're trying to speak Spanish, we do a little debrief and we talk about it. We talk about, did we say the right thing here? What was the word that we didn't understand? How should we have said that word? Things like that.
Yeah. It was one of those debriefs that we realized we were not necessarily speaking, we were more communicating. Getting to where we can speak is a slow process, just like listening and understanding. Right.
So, when I think of speaking, I think of, walking into a local restaurant and saying to the waiter, wow, I see you here all the time. Do they ever give you a day off? That's kind of my thing. Or are you just starting your shift? Or, are you about to go home? Things like that. So now I suppose I could come up with how to say that in Spanish, but then they better not have a follow-up question. So, I would say that our conversations are more about, it's more communication than speaking.
Yeah. Por ejemplo, you might remember we talked about two outings we've had with some new friends here in Spain in our previous videos. We talked about how we understood them and how we spoke back and they understood us. Even in those moments, we were communicating more than speaking, which actually makes sense since the first 1,000 hours of this method is all about input and understanding what you're listening to and much less about speaking.
Right.
When we speak to them, we're using verbs, but not necessarily in their correct form. We're speaking in the present tense, mostly with the occasional past tense. But for me, this is how I form a sentence at the moment. I think about what I want to say in English, and then I use whatever vocabulary and sentence structure knowledge that I have, and then I form it into a sentence, and voila. I say it.
Right.
So it's not super fast or efficient, but that's where I am right now, basically piecing together words. So with our friends or even during everyday conversations in public, it's been working, but I'm pretty sure we sound like 2-year-olds.
Right. which that's understandable. That's okay.
Yeah.
So now, as it relates to our, our communicating experience here in Spain, I would say 80% of the time has been amazing. Our understanding is great, and we can put sentences together, and we can get our point across. Por ejemplo, We met an awesome Argentinian family and we were able to talk to them. They didn't know any English at all.
Yeah.
We were able to ask them like why they moved to Spain, how they like living in Spain. We actually tell them a little bit about us. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was broken Spanish on our end because during the Spanish, we could understand them. Now, the other 20% of the time, I mean, we just want to cry. but those moments can be super frustrating and embarrassing. But, times at the counter of a panderia, a farmacia, a cualquier tiendas, during those times, the clerk was busy and not able to be super patient with us.
Yeah, that's when we realized we've had these great stories of speaking and communicating and how great it was, and it was, but it also gave us a false sense of our abilities.
Right. Of course, now, don't get us wrong. I mean, we are happy that we can communicate. But in a more controlled situation, our friends were patient and super helpful. They corrected us when they had to. No one was in a hurry. And it's really easy to kind of leave those situations thinking that we got this. I bet you that we can make an advanced video.
Exactly.
but in the real world, without all the comforts, you get a little disappointed and overwhelmed.
Yeah. Speaking of the real world, I was in a pharmacy asking for cough drops. I said, "Tienen pastillas para la tos?"
Ooh.
And she said, "¿Qué?" And I didn't know what else to say. I didn't have any other words. So I just repeated it. "Tienen pastillas para la tos?" And she got me something that dissolves in your mouth versus what I was actually looking for, which was a Halls. And what she gave me was probably better than a Halls. But the point was more that I couldn't explain why I needed these. Like in English, I would have said, when she said "que," I would have said, I need something to soothe the throat from a dry cough.
Right.
So I don't know. It was just one of those instances where I felt a little defeated.
Right. So I also have a real world story that I have to tell, which is kind of funny, actually. We had to go to the bank and we only had two things that we had to do. We had to pay a tax and we had to open a checking account. And we went there about, 9:45, and we were there until about 12:15. Everything was great during the tax part. We told them what we needed, and it was pretty simple. And we understood most of what she said because we were familiar with the words that she was using. So thanks, Pablo. But then came the bank account. So, we had one person that was helping us, and we were doing our best to kind of tell her what we needed. And she was super helpful. And then what she had to do was she actually had to go and find someone else to come back and help. And neither one of them knew English. Chicos, she broke out the Google Translate. No, man, this is the first time that anyone has done that. But, that was just kind of how things were going. So, of course, we did the same thing. But it was like we were admitting defeat. It was rough. Yeah. But, we made it through. And let me tell you, when we left there, we felt like we needed a drink. But guess what? We ended up with 2 checking accounts, a private health insurance, and some kind of other combo insurance. And then later we actually found out that we had opened a personal and business account and a health insurance bundle. So, and this is just an example of, a time where if it had been English, we would have been able to ask the right follow-up questions to make sure we got exactly what we wanted, but when we were all messed up.
Yeah, we've had some stressful moments here in Spain.
Yeah.
The biggest one being Greg losing his passport, which was in an earlier video. I'll post it down below. But these 2 to 3 hours in the bank was probably the second most stressful event that we've had here.
Yeah, it was crazy. I would kind of say that it, might actually be the most stressful because when I lost my passport, I could kind of understand what was happening and what they were saying. But this was really the first time where Lisa and I kind of looked at each other like, I don't really know what's going on, which is why she broke out the Google Translate. So,
So basically learning to speak is not a fast process. I know there's a lot of people out there that have all these techniques to learn to speak in 3 months and they're speaking all fluently and stuff. But we're just not those people.
Yeah, no.
We feel like we're more absorbing the language for long-term retention. And at least that's how we feel about it.
Right. So we can safely say that we are communicating Speaking, I mean, sorta. I mean, speaking fluently, no, not so much. And we get frustrated by that from time to time. But we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing because we know more Spanish now than we have ever known in our entire lives. So comprehensible input is designed to get you to understand first and then speak when you're ready. And some of you may speak faster in the process than we do, and that's perfectly fine. Others may be just like us, and we feel your pain. But ultimately, we're doing our best to continue learning in the process. So as always, we encourage you to comment and keep building the community. And if you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the notification button. That way you'll be notified when we release our next amazing, awesome, funny, hilarious kind of video. Sorry. So, all right, anything else?
Nope.
All right. Venga. Adios.
Adios.